Greetings anew, and welcome to another episode of Intuitive Reactions, this time focusing on Armenia and Armenian matters. Over the past few days, I had two rather long and coffee-fueled chats with two Armenian friends. And in both cases, after the good-natured banter, our conversations inevitably drifted toward the political challenges facing both Armenia, the Republic, and Nagorno-Karabakh, the enclave, known to most Armenians as Hayastan and Artsakh. Drinking his coffee latte, one of the two friends turned into a vehement and irate defender of the Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan. How could anyone, he suggested, even dare to criticize this decent man who has been painstakingly ridding Armenia of corruption whilst also trying to help a post-Soviet Armenia enter the independent orbit of modern nations? The other friend, who incidentally likes cappuccinos, was equally vehement and irate. But in his case, he blamed, not applauded, the same prime minister for all the ills that have been visited upon Armenia, particularly its spectacular defeat by Azerbaijan in the 44-day war in September 2020. The conversations I had with both friends were, of course, much longer and far more elaborate than this simplistic two-dimensional description. In each case, I spent some 90 minutes or so toing and froing with them over what is right and what is wrong with Armenia, and to some extent with Armenians too today. So in the next few short minutes, I'd like to share with you a sense of the two contrasting conversations in order to highlight my own deep and growing anxieties about the looming existential dangers that, if left unchecked, could weaken Armenia considerably and expose it to many perils. I'll also do it in the context of the earthquake diplomacy and attempts at normalization pursued publicly by Armenia with Türkiye, as well as more clandestinely and fitfully with Azerbaijan. For many observers, particularly non-Armenians, small symbols do not matter. But for me, they do. And one telling detail of this bumpy attempt at normalization was the transfer of aid from Armenia to earthquake-hit Türkiye via the Marmara Bridge across the Arax River, which had been closed by Türkiye for the last 30 years and was opened for one time and one use only in order to drive the humanitarian aid into Adıyaman in the southeast of the country. This convoy was followed by the arrival to Türkiye of the Armenian foreign minister, who visited this earthquake site and met with his Turkish counterpart. Let me stress here that I am happy with any rapprochement that helps foster reconciliation between neighbors and also helps open closed borders. I'm equally happy when I learn that the special representatives of Armenia and Türkiye have had more than 500 phone conversations since August 2022. But do I believe, maybe trust is an equally valid verb here, that this process will lead to peace? I'm not too sure. Alternative dispute resolution is a rich and diverse topic, and it includes substance as much as optics. This is what we mean when we practitioners talk so often about CBMs or confidence-building measures. But then, how do I marry the Armenian efforts at sending aid to Türkiye when President Tayyip Recep Erdogan stated at the same time that the Azerbaijani, and I quote, brothers were on the side of the Turks after the disaster, as the Turks were on the side of Azerbaijan during the 44-day war? You know, listening to my two friends nudged me to examine my own feelings. Was I the cafe latte drinker or the cappuccino drinker? As I see it, Armenia has undergone a long development. It has gone a long way toward meeting Turkish demands. For instance, Nagorno-Karabakh, in my opinion, is no longer the pressing foreign policy priority for Armenia, no matter the platitudes every now and then. And the recognition of the Armenian genocide, a genocide that saw members of my own family perish in 1915, has for all intents and purposes also been dropped somewhat unceremoniously from the Armenian foreign policy agenda. So I ask myself, what else must Armenia offer Türkiye before the latter normalizes relations with it? After all, the enclave of Nagorno-Karabakh and the Armenian genocide have been the two key obstacles. Or are they? Well, I'd opine that there are other secondary conditions that Türkiye places upon any such reconciliation, preconditions which incidentally are coordinated with their Azerbaijani brothers. One such precondition is the Zangezur corridor that connects Azerbaijan with Nakhichevan, and where Baku insists on an unimpeded and uncontrolled movement across Armenian territory. In other words, it wants to drive through Armenian territory, remember, sovereign Armenian territory, without acknowledging this sovereignty. Now, would any other self-respecting country accept such a deal? By any other name, this, for me, is occupation. There are heavy-duty optics, too. Ankara, for instance, expects Armenia to make an unequivocal statement about not having any territorial claims against Türkiye by editing its declaration of independence that refers to Eastern and Western Armenia. Furthermore, it demands a removal of the image of Mount Ararat from the coat of arms of Armenia, as this symbol, so dear to almost all Armenians, might indicate territorial claims. Let us be serious. The predicament that Armenia faces today, that it finds itself in, is not wholly the fault of Nikol Pashinyan. The previous presidents have compromised and corrupted and tarnished the political reality too. But the key difference between them and the incumbent prime minister is that the latter does not have good relations with President Putin, and therein lies one major hub of the problem. Pashinyan wants to foster good relations with the USA and with Europe. And the small EU mission that has recently been deployed along the Armenian border is an example of such an attempt at becoming a more vibrant member of the EU neighborhood architecture. But Russia doesn't accept the West encroaching into what it considers its territory. After all, the Russo-Ukrainian war is in part about this turgid concept, isn't it? So as a reaction to westward-leaning moves by Armenia, a new tripartite Russia, Türkiye, Azerbaijan axis has been formed that combines geopolitics and oil supplies from Russia via Azerbaijan to third parties that excludes and weakens Armenia further. Alas, Armenia, and I speak as an Armenian, does not have many cards up its sleeve. Its military weakness is its Achilles heel par excellence, and the Russian alienation, coupled with uncertainty about Western solidarity with Armenia, renders the situation painfully fragile. History, we know, is written by victors, and so are most terms of any peaceful settlement. This is what Armenia faces today: internal unease and dissensions, coupled with a restive diaspora and unceasing military threats that are placing Armenia on the back foot. Frankly, neither Erdogan's neo-Ottoman political antics nor Aliyev's triumphalist postures provide me with much reassurance that it is possible to strike a deal. I want Pashinyan to succeed, but I cannot bring myself to believe that he can. And Armenia is too small a country in a volatile South Caucasus region to undertake such an existential gamble. Look at what is happening in Georgia just next door, another small country of 4 million inhabitants, as demonstrators in Tbilisi are challenging the government on the so-called foreign agents, a parliamentary bill that is similar to the one in Russia. Besides, have we not witnessed Turkish fraternal relations with Syrian refugees go sour as soon as Erdogan's interests turned elsewhere? So what guarantees are there that the future of Armenia will not be threatened further? US guarantees? I doubt it. European ones? I doubt it too. Russian ones? They're preoccupied by a war that they are not winning. Moreover, Aliyev pretends that Armenia and Nagorno-Karabakh combined belong to Azerbaijan. This attitude is not one that defines peacemaking. Rather, it seeks capitulation and surrender. It's very hard to make peace, whether you are a Nikol Pashinyan, a Garekin Bogosyan, an Ivan Bagramyan, or even David of Sassoon himself. But then, the big elephant in the room, the ghoulish specter, if you wish, is simple for me. What can Armenia do to defend its sovereignty and thereby its existence? At what can it offer the West to defend its territorial integrity the way they're so ready to do for Ukraine and Taiwan? I wish this is what my two friends had discussed with me over our coffees, instead of them pulling in two diametrically opposite directions. In a moment of national danger, and mark my words, that the danger is national, askain, if the Armenian word resonates better for some, you fold your internal differences, you put them on the shelf, and then you focus on what matters most, your survival. Let me repeat that. Let me say our survival preempts everything else, no matter who is holding the steering wheel. The rest could come later, but there will be no later if the steering wheel is no longer in any Armenian hand.